Hello, hello, Deanna here, and thanks so much for being here. So today's video, I am going to be going ahead and doing my July 2022 wrap up. So in the past little bit, I have been keeping a reading journal. So I am gonna go ahead and flip to my July spread, and we're gonna get into the July books that I've read as my reading wrap up. So here we have it. Here are the July 2022 books that I've read this month. So I have my list here of all of the books, and I'm going to go through them just one by one and just gonna talk a little bit about them. So I'm gonna start with the first book that I have on my list here, which is The Help by Catherine Stockett. The Help was actually my book club read of the month, so I do have a book club that I'm a part of with some friends and such, and this was actually one that was on my list for July, so I read this by audio version. So this should actually have a little line here. I like to put a little music note to signify to myself that that was an audiobook, that I had read it in audiobook. So I accidentally put it as an audiobook when I didn't listen to it as an audiobook. I read it as an ebook. So let's change that and put my little ebook symbol, which is just like a little phone that I put in there. So there you go. So I read this one in ebook format. So I had this as an ebook, and I was able to read The Help through ebook. And it was my book club choice. I had already heard about this book because I knew that it was a very popular movie with a pretty incredible cast. So I know it's got a very incredible cast of characters like Jessica Chastain, Emma Stone, and the incredible Octavia Spencer and Viola Davis, just to name a few of them. So there is such an amazing cast of characters in this movie. So I had already been intrigued by this book just because of some of the Oscar buzz that I think that was going on about the actual movie and just how popular this movie was. And then I also read another book that I'll get more into, but The Help was mentioned in this book as an example, and that really made me even that much more intrigued to read The Help. So I went ahead and did choose this as the book club choice for the month because we get to choose between two books, and this is the one that I decided to read for the month as my first choice, and I did really enjoy it. I found the character of Skeeter was very interesting. She did have a lot of growth throughout the book, and it was interesting seeing her point of view because we do see the three different characters' point of view: Skeeter, Minnie, and Aibileen. But I was actually more interested in Minnie and Aibileen, especially Aibileen. I thought she had such a riveting tale and so emotional and heartbreaking of what happened to her and her son, and I really just wanted to see more of their backstory. But I did find the book interesting though. My favorite character ended up being Miss Celia, which was played by Jessica Chastain in the movie, and I just absolutely loved the character of Miss Celia, just like her innocence and kind of her view on the world and just kind of her background and story. I found that very heartbreaking, some of the scenes between her and Minnie in the book, and I just absolutely loved what was going on with her, and I would have almost loved to see her point of view in the book. But I really did find the book intriguing. It had me very much looking back at like what was life like back in the 1960s, and it had me researching some of the Jim Crow laws and just some of the horribleness that happened back then, and just kind of trying to get a better understanding of what was going on about in that time with some of the civil rights movements and things like that, and just, oh my goodness, all of that very much. It was sometimes a little hard to read because of how real it was in a lot of ways, but there was also a bit of controversy surrounding this book, I found, because it is written by a white woman, and it's kind of got a bit of like that white savior complex, like the white woman Skeeter comes in and saves the day and things like that. So there is a little bit of valid criticism in that regard for the book, but I did still find the book interesting and I still enjoyed it, and I really loved the movie. The movie was fantastic. I ended up watching the movie after I read the book, and absolutely loved it. I could see why it was so abuzz with all of the popularity that it gained. So I ended up rating this a 4-star one because there was a lot that I enjoyed about the book, but there was some things that maybe weren't my favorite. But overall, I did like the 3 different points of view. I liked seeing those different things, but I almost kind of wanted a little more. So that's why it is a 4-star for me. So that was The Help. And back to my list for The Help. It is raining out something, so happy vacation to me. Then the next book I read was November 9th by Colleen Hoover. Colleen Hoover, that name is definitely one that I have seen a lot all over YouTube and just, you know, Instagram and all kinds of different places. I have seen the author Colleen Hoover. She has been quite a popular author that I've seen around, and I know that one of the books on my list that was the big one that everybody's talking about is It Ends With Us. But I also did see something about November 9th, and so it really intrigued me. I mean, I'm a November baby, so November already got me there looking at anything November related. And this one in particular, I was going away on vacation and I wanted to take something with me that was kind of fun and exciting and had a bit of an interesting read and maybe just kept me excited for the read. And so I read this one, which it did. It was hooked right away when I read this. I mean, I annotated the heck out of this one in regards to like tabbing. I didn't actually highlight anything, but I did put a lot of tabs in, and there's just a lot here because there's a lot of feels with reading this book. Oh my goodness, is it raining out? I'm sorry if you hear that in the background. It is just pouring out right now. The rain wants to hear about November 9th as well. But this book, I have a video I posted about this because it's just an incredible book. Definitely gave me a lot of feels, had me kind of questioning what was going on. We had a dual point of view in this one, which I absolutely loved. We had Ben's point of view on top of, we had the main character point of view, and Fallon. So we had Ben's point of view and we had Fallon's point of view in this one, and I just have like a little blurb here about November 9th. Like I said, I bought it as a juicy book for vacation. I was absolutely hooked on this one right by the first scene. It just hooked me right in. And I cried a bit. I absolutely loved the premise of this book on how they met and then they were going to meet once a year because they were pretty young to be falling in love. So they thought they would like kind of see how the relationship would go because the main character Fallon's moving away anyways, so it would kind of be a long distance and they didn't really want to invest in that because they wanted to like focus on their own lives. So it was a bit of, well, let's just kind of meet once a year and see how it's going on. But then you're also wondering, like, Benton he might have some kind of iffy motives going on. So he's a writer, and this would make a perfect story for a book that he could publish. So there's just like that going on, and there's just a lot, and I loved it. I absolutely loved this book. I found it so amazing. I cried so much, and I gave it 5 stars. So I loved this one. Loved it. All right, so back to my list. Boom, there's my list. All right, then we got next on the list, we have The Battle of Labyrinth and The Last Olympian. I'm gonna do these both at the same time because they are from the Percy Jackson series. Annotated the heck out of this one with highlights and everything. I had so much fun going through this one, summarizing some of what was happening and just what's going on and who's who. And I mean, I absolutely love Greek mythology, and the way that Rick writes these and puts them into the story, it's just so fascinating to see how he ties it in into a way that's very easily digestible for a younger audience, and for the adventures and the action and all the fun that goes on in these series. Love. I loved this so much. I loved not only the Greek side, but just even his writing, the way that things went. Like the labyrinth was so twisty and turny, just like the labyrinth itself, that it was just like, oh my goodness, it was peak writing. Like absolutely loved it. Loved it. And then the way that it all came together with The Last Olympian here, like this one just was fantastic as well. I didn't annotate this one as much, I think because I just got so sucked into the story that I couldn't even, I don't know, I just was like, wow. Like this, I was annotating a lot to like learn and kind of like see, okay, what's coming out here and what's that and who's this. This, we meet a couple new characters, but most of them are already very well established because this is the final book. So it's the final tie-in of everything together, and just the way that it all plays off was just wonderful and incredible. So I absolutely love these series. Gave them both 5 stars. Love the whole series. Absolutely glad that I read these both. My journal thing here too, if you've seen my old video of my June, July, I had it just these 2, and then I went back and put these ones as well. So here is all of the series, a full 5 out of 5 star for me. Absolutely love them all. So yes, highly recommend the Percy Jackson series. Absolutely love these both. Then the next one on my list is Save the Cat Writes a Novel by Jessica Brody. This one, yet again, is very much annotated. This was more of a nonfiction read, more of like a how-to book in a way. It's written by Jessica Brody, but as you see here, it's based on the book by Blake Snyder, where he writes this very much for screenwriting, and then Jessica took it in writing novels because they're very similar, have a lot of the same kind of points and beats that you want to hit. And like, again, I annotated the heck out of this one because there's just so much to learn, so much to understand. And I think reading this helps me not only with my own writing of my own books that I'm writing and having fun with, but also just in analyzing stories too, and kind of being able to pick out some of the scenes in books and being like, oh, this fits this narrative, this scene, or this is like this, or this is breaking into the act 2, or, you know, it kind of helps sometimes in that regard. So I found this one such a delightful read. It took me, I read this for more than just July. This one I started quite a few months ago because I was really just taking in the information, soaking it in, and then I got annotating the heck out of it, and that made it like, oh my god, so much more fun. I wish I had done this more in school because, oh my goodness, was this like a way to learn and take in the information and learn more about what was actually going on. Like, I loved it. So I absolutely loved this book in that it was really great writing style. Like, she had very easy to read examples. She had very simple way of explaining things that was very easy to digest and understand. So I absolutely loved that. I also loved that it's not just her telling and you trying to understand it. She also gave some like breakdowns, especially in the back here, of like actual genres that you can find, and then like some wheres you can find them, and then even gave like a breakdown of like books that you could read. So in here there was quite a few that I went through, and this is where I really read the breakdown of The Help. So this was like the breakdown of The Help all in here, and I read it like scene by scene, and it just made me want to read the book that much more. Like she made it so interesting to read it here, and that it just made it more exciting to read it. But it was really interesting too, seeing how she, you know, was able to take some of these parts of the institutionalized genre and give like examples and things. So I absolutely love this book, and I find this for anyone who maybe is struggling a little bit with plotting, or maybe you're struggling a bit with trying to hit certain beats, or why is my pacing off, or why is something happening that maybe isn't really flowing well in the story, or I've got plot holes or anything like that. I do recommend checking this book out and just seeing maybe if this can help you. Of course, we don't want all stories to be the exact same, but just like Jessica kind of explains in this book, there is no really real original ideas. There is very few in history. We have been telling tales and having art and being creative for a millennia. So of course some stories are going to be a bit of regurgitated takes on certain genres, like she shows, like the Golden Fleece, or you know, the Monster in the House and things like that. Like there is certain genres that you can pick out and say, oh, that's what that is, and it usually has these certain elements. And no, it's not going to be maybe 100% beat for beat, but I think this helps in just kind of, are you on the same playing field at all? Like, are you way out in left field and your book's not going to make sense to anyone? Or is there some elements that people can relate to and can recognize, and that really makes them sometimes feel comfortable in writing? Of course, everything is meant to be broken too. And I think what this book helps too is you gotta know the formulas to be able to break the formulas. So if you do want to be that really original person and kind of think outside the box, you gotta know what the box is, and you gotta know what's inside the box before you can step out of the box. So I thought that this book was really, really cool in that. And as you see, like, I absolutely loved it, and it's something that really has helped me in a lot of ways. So I love this one. 5 stars for just inspiring, fun, insightful, helpful, all the wonderful buzzwords of how great this book was. All right, so the next one, going back to Colleen Hoover, we've got It Ends With Us. This one is much thicker, much heavier than November 9. But this is the book that is everywhere. This is all over the place. Like anywhere I turn, I show up anywhere, and this is just there. Anywhere I look when it comes to popular books in the last year, this has been on that list. So this is very hyped up, very talked about. And I had some mixed feelings on this one. I annotated just in the way like I did with November 9th, where I just were sticking the tabs in. I wasn't highlighting anything. I was just going, oh, this is the emotion I feel. Like, this is kind of what my annotation guide was. Like, what's romantic, love, character info, my twists are shocking, disgust and anger, moving, emotional, deep, meaningful, and funny. And it ended up kind of changing a little bit because I have to be, I wrote this, I think, when I kind of knew what the book was about, and then my little tabbing kind of changed as I was reading the book. But with this one in particular, as you can see, this one is got a lot of green, and it still remained my anger and disgust, because there was just a lot on this that made me very upset reading it. And I almost didn't finish this one. This one was almost a DNF. I have a video about it. You can check it out. But yeah, I did push through. I persevered. And this one in particular, I gave 4 stars because I really appreciate her writing style. I really appreciate some of the characters that were in here in regards to like how fleshed out some of them were. There was a lot that was really cool about this book, the originality of this book, and just taking Colleen's kind of own life situation and kind of writing a book about it made it really interesting. But it was hard to read this as well. There was parts that I absolutely like just got under. Like, it was so hard to read this. Such an emotional read in so many ways, both like emotionally, crying wise, and wanting me to throw the book in some ways. So this in a lot of ways was a great read in that regard, but it also had a couple scenes that I was just like, So it was 4 stars for me. It was 4 stars. It like infuriated me. I felt for Lily. Lily was incredible. The main character, Lily, absolutely loved her as a character. But yeah, I was tempted to DNF it, so that's why it was like, I can't really give it a 5-star, but it is a 4-star, and I'm excited to read more of Colleen Hoover because I really, really loved November 9th. And this one definitely sparked a lot of emotion in me. So she really is a great writer in that way. Like, she gets the feelings going. You get invested in her stories. You're very, very engaged with her storytelling. So that is fantastic. And she is incredible in that regard. And so I'd love to see, maybe check out like Ugly Love and some of the other ones that I know that she's written. So that'll be on my TBR list in the future, but for now, this one's been on it for a while, and I'm just happy that I checked it off my TBR list. So that is It Ends With Us. The next one on the list is The School for Good and Evil by Shoman Chanani. So this one was one that I've seen. I've already seen some people have some mixed reviews on this one, and that's all fine. I think it's part of it is the writing style. It's comes across very middle grade reading, but then it's not really middle grade, especially some of the themes explored and just some of the writing. And I mean, this is a big thick, she's a thick one, which can be a little off-putting for some middle grade when that's typically about age 8 to 12, I believe is usually about middle grade. So yeah, this one, some of the theme explored and kind of what happens, some of it was a little eye-rolling and a little frustrating, but overall I was really interested in this story and I wanted to see what was going on, and I really loved the character Agatha. Did not really like Sophie, but that it was an interesting in regards to a lot of it. Sometimes it was a little too much. It was a little information overload, but there was also some really cool parts of this too. So I gave this one 4 stars. I even wrote up like a whole page for it because I mean, these are kind of usually stories that I love too. Love like magical schools and kind of like the magical mystery that like surrounds this, and I love those kind of tales. And that's where in some ways this was really, really fun and really engaging, but in other ways it was like kind of frustrating, and there was just certain parts of it that's kind of here and there on. But I love some of the art that you can like see throughout it. That was really fun. And like there's some scenes like that were just really good, but there were some characters that melded together a little too much. Like I said, it was a little too much information all jam-packed in this huge book, and so it could be a lot to take for the level of the reading style. So that's where, to me, this is a 4-star read. I am interested in reading more because this is book 1, I believe, out of 6, so I'm very interested to see where the story goes. And there's like a little sneak peek at the back here that I kind of was looking at a bit. So I'm very tempted to pick up the next one in the series, and I think I will at some point, and kind of see where the series goes. I mean, this was endorsed by Rick himself, the Percy Jackson series, which I just thought was so funny because I just finished the Percy Jackson series and I absolutely loved it, and think Rick is a phenomenal writer in that regard. So I was very like, ooh, he loved it. What is it like? And I've seen some posts, I think, from the author who wrote this too, and he just seems very witty and funny and interesting. So I was very like drawn to, okay, I like some of this stuff going on. And the premise was really, really interesting. So interesting on that. You have this village who has this like mystery of like what happens to some of the children that are like kidnapped sometimes in the middle of the night, and then they become like part of like fairy tales, like real fairy tales, and how does that kind of like go, and their fates are mixed up, and oh, there was just so much excitement. And like I said, it's such a good premise. Sometimes the execution was a little much though. Sometimes it was a little hard to read because it was like, okay, beauty equals good, but it doesn't, and like that kind of got like, it was hard to keep track of that sometimes. And you know, there were some metaphors that they tried to pull off, and sometimes it just didn't always land that great. And there was some characters like the main character, or one of the love interest or the hero, it was could be a little two-dimensional. So it was a 4-star. Then the final book that I read for the month of July was a classic that I have been reading for a while, which is the Jane Eyre by Charlotte Rante. And this one, like I said, I was reading this one, look at how much too as well. This one took me quite a few months to get through. I think one, it was the language. I mean, you've got like that kind of older English when you're reading this, so it's a bit of a different kind of dialogue and way that it's writing style. You know, it's from like the 1800s. They do not speak the same now as they do. It wasn't quite as hard, I find, as Pride and Prejudice. I found Pride and Prejudice even harder to read than this one. I found this one, I actually was a lot more excited to read this one. I found this one interesting. I do love that like on the back of here, it says that Charlotte has been called the first historian of the private consciousness. And I believe that's because Charlotte is actually one of the first writers documented to use first person narrative, and I find that so fascinating. And I did find that helped me get like really into this story and really see things from Jane's point of view, because sometimes in books when it's third person it's a little hard to get that. There can be that kind of wall between the reader and the protagonist, whereas this one you're like right in there with Jane and you're feeling kind of some of what Jane's feeling and stuff like that. And some of the writing was just so beautiful and so incredible. I mean, there's so many parts where I just like marked off where I loved it. Like I absolutely love some of the parts here where she's talking about like Helen. Absolutely loved her relationship with Helen. Like she's just like going on about how beautiful Helen is, and like, and it's more than just her beauty, it's like Helen as a person. It gripped me so much. And I think what took me so long reading this is I was prioritizing Pride and Prejudice over this one, because Pride and Prejudice was Jane Austen. I was trying to get it finished before July, just because July is Jane Austen month, so I was just trying to get that done. And I think too that I was a little burnt out a little bit on classics for a bit after reading Pride and Prejudice, so that's why it took me a little bit to get back to Jane Eyre. And then I was trying to go back and annotate things, because as you see here, there's a chunk where I didn't annotate at all because I was just reading, and so I was trying to like re-annotate. And then I was like, why am I doing this? Just finish the story. And then once I was just like, you know what? I was here on chapter 21 and I was like halfway through the book pretty much, and I was stuck on trying to go back, and I'm like, you know what? Don't go back. Just go forward and finish it. And I finished this in like a couple days. So it was really interesting, really exciting. I could see, not having any knowledge of this book and what goes on, how exciting and like enthralling it could be, and the twists and the shocks, and oh my gosh, like I already knew about the Jane Eyre story plotline because one, it's Jane Eyre and it's classic and like it's pretty pretty renowned all over the place, but I'd also actually read a couple retellings before even reading this, not even realizing one of them was a retelling. So I already knew kind of the character arc and like the scene, what was gonna happen, but even still reading the original was just beautiful and just wonderful. And I love how far ahead of her time Charlotte was, and just, this is amazing to like read this and be like, yes, I read Jane Eyre, and I think it's one of my favorite books now. And I gave it 5 stars, and I was so enamored with it. I loved it so much that it got its like own spread. Like, I absolutely loved it. I loved the quote about Helen Burns that's here, just about like I said, like her beauty, but also how it was like more than just her looks and stuff. So I absolutely loved this book so much, and like I'm like now a big Jane Eyre geek, so I love this, and I could see myself probably rereading this because it was just so interesting, and it just fascinates me that we still continue to read this to this day, and just how infamous this book is, and just so many feels on this book. So I absolutely love our heroine Jane Eyre, and just the triumphs that she went through, and just the character that she became. Like, I love that character arc of her. So I absolutely love this book. Fantastic, phenomenal. That was all of my books of July 2022. So those are all the books that I read. And then what's amazing is a lot of them, I think all of them, were on my TBR. Yeah, I think that's literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, because the School for Good and November 9th. So, yay! Not only did I meet my whole July TBR, but I surpassed it with a couple extras. So, yay! Yay for reading. So, I had a great read in July, and I was so excited to get into August, which my reads for August, my TBR for August, is now very Greek inspired. I find I've got a lot of Greek reads. I actually just finished Circe yesterday, so that was incredible. Absolutely, like, love that one. I'll have video at some point on that one. And then I'm currently reading Ariadne, so I'm about here on Ariadne. So got a little bit into it, got a little bit to go, but very, very Greek vibes this month of August. And I love kind of that I unknowingly, like, even the little clouds and like just this pattern like kind of screams Greek mythology to me. And it's just funny because I have like 3 books on here that are about Greek, and of course reading Percy Jackson has really gotten me into like the Greek mood. And I know I read A Song of Achilles not too long ago too, which kind of led me down that path as well. So I'm very interested in some of the Greek retellings. Got a lot that I know about, but I've at least got this one. I've got a copy of this book. I already read Circe, and then I've got this big one to read as well, which is Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, which this is what inspires a lot of those Greek retellings. So I want to go back and read it. I've got the Barry Powell version, which I think is supposed to be very helpful. Like, he kind of breaks down some things and kind of tells you a little bit about where some of these came or who this person is and stuff like that. So I'm very, very interested to continue reading this. I've already started a little bit of it, and then I was like, well, I want to read some of these books first before I really get into this big beast, because this is gonna be a big beast. So I'm very interested in reading this though, and kind of seeing like just, wow, just where I know some of the Iliad and the Odyssey, because I read some of it in like before for, you know, English and stuff like that. But I'm just very interested to actually get some of these the actual lines here, and just I'm kind of excited for this. So I'm gonna kind of geek out a bit on Greek myths and just the Greek tellings this month. So August is going to be all about the month of the Greeks, I think. Very much like this is going to be hopefully one of my priorities to read this big behemoth. So wish me luck. After I get done Ariadne, I might get into Iliad, so we will see. So that is it. That is my wrap up of July 2022. I hope you enjoyed. I'm gonna leave you here with this beautiful picture of my library that I made with all my books that I read so far for this year, that I at least have in this book. These aren't all of the books I've read more than this, but these are all the ones that are in this book so far. So here is that, and I hope you enjoyed this way of doing my wrap up. I just thought it was kind of fun to just go through my journal that I created on a way to capture all of these different books that I've read and just my thoughts and things, and then just going through each of the books. So let me know if you liked this format, because I'm gonna continue doing it for a bit, and if I get really good positive feedback, that's awesome. But if you miss my face at all, I am sure you will see me in some other videos. I'll have some of my actual reviews posted and thing, but if you like this overview shot, then I don't know, this works for those days that I just don't want to be on camera that much. I just want to show you some of the pretty ways that I've laid it out in my journal. So I hope you enjoyed. If you did, give it a thumbs up. I appreciate it. And I'm gonna stop rambling because I'll go on forever. All right, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, night, evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Thank you so much for being here. Take care of yourself, and you will see me, maybe my journal or maybe my face, who knows, but you'll see me in the next one. Bye!